Number 10, feel the music. There are many odd experiments in history where humans, should have left human elements out of it. Like music and illicit substances. I can't say what I want to say, but it's a bad substance that's white. There you go, paint the image in your head. There you go, we'll move around YouTube's algorithm. Back in 2011, a study was done where rats, or rather a bunch of rats, were all put in a room and on loop, they played a Miles Davis song just over and over again. So they were all on said substances and they were in a room while Miles Davis played. This is a science experiment, may I add. Just smooth jazz for these rats all day long. Imagine walking into that room, you're like, what's going on in here? It's kind of fun, dare I say. Well, before the substances were injected into these test subjects, they all seemed to have calm demeanors while Beethoven was playing. But after injected, all the rats were neurologically triggered to that smooth jazz. They acted differently in a group setting, which is kind of weird. After a full week on the, not so great sauce, the rats were all of a sudden like, you know what? We love Miles Davis now. We changed our minds. So yeah, illicit substances changes how you listen to music apparently. If you're a rat, any rats watching, hit that thumbs up with your little rat hands. Number 9, the first pregnancy test. If you're looking past the ancient Egyptians and their use of barley and urine to determine if somebody's pregnant, you'll often land on this experiment from the 1930s. It's pretty close. It's heavily inspired. It was developed in 1931 by Maurice Friedman at the University of Pennsylvania Medical School. Now what would happen here is doctors would inject a rabbit with urine from a woman who was suspected of being pregnant, and the rabbit's ovaries could easily tell if that was the case. Accurate? Yes. Historical? Changes the game? Why, of course. Would it also end up with the rabbit passing away every single time? Yes. It's sad more often than not when humans are involved in any medical process, but we're trying to not do that anymore. We're doing pretty good. All those furs were like, nah, get out of here. Number 8, Kunga. Perhaps the earliest example of human-animal hybrid testing. Here we go. Scientists recently learned about this donkey hybrid that once roamed ancient Mesopotamia. This was a long time ago. This was before horses had even arrived to land, so they had to do something, right? They needed help pulling stuff. So large Kungas would step in and they would pull wagons, and smaller Kungas would help pulling plows. These little guys were the talk of the town. Imagine a hybrid animal before horses. No wonder they were a status symbol, come on. 4,000 years ago, they were given as gifts for weddings. Yummy, can you imagine that? I think it's a Kunga. It smells like a Kunga. I think it's definitely a Kunga. After so long, scientists are finally able to figure out what exactly a Kunga was a hybrid of. This whole time, it was a female donkey and a male Syrian wild ass. Put them together, what a wild time. It's wild what you still learn about ancient animal bones from thousands and thousands of years ago. More amazing how involved this hybrid was in Mesopotamian culture. I don't know, should we bring back the Kunga? Kind of neat. Kunga Uber? I would take those, hop in a little cart. Number 7, inner armor. All right, let's change it up a little bit, shall we? DARPA's Inner Armor Project. This was the Pentagon's way of creating super soldiers. Yeah, and Marvel Phase 5 or whatever, couldn't be a better time to bring this out. Scientists use animals as a reference for these new abilities, like literally from a Marvel movie. They're studying the DNA of the stellar sea lion because it can reduce blood flow away from organs if need be in order to reduce oxygen demand to survive. Yeah, that's like a superpower. We gotta figure that out. That would be sweet. Just Aquaman with a tactical vest? Okay, sure, let's do it. Dr. Michael Callahan, who is in charge of running the operation, says that the goal is to make soldiers kill-proof against disease, chemical weapons, radioactive weapons, harsh weather conditions, you name it, all that stuff. Now, this was back in 2007. And then later in 2014, Barack Obama just came out of nowhere and announced that the United States is working on building Iron Man. Yeah, apparently that wasn't a joke. Number 6, the Milgram experiment. All right, we gotta turn it up a little bit, shall we? While learning about our past in further detail, like the Trinity test, for example, and how that led to the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it's important to understand why these things happened and how people like the Germans were so easily influenced into doing what they did. So the Milgram experiment was put in place to start getting some ideas, right? How far will people go when it comes to obeying instructions, specifically if it involves a third party being hurt? Stanley Milgram, Yale psychologist, he created this test, and there's 3 important rules for this one. There's the teacher, the experimenter, and the learner. The learner is disguised as the main test subject, but they're really in on the whole thing. The real subject is actually the teacher, the one administering pain to the test subject. Yeah, they're told by this higher figure or whatever to keep upping the pain every time they get a question wrong. So the real test is to see how far humans will go when hurting others. The icing on this experiment, of course, is that the subject isn't actually getting shocked at all. These tests were underway in 1961 in a basement at Yale University. Imagine taking the wrong turn on your way to class, you end up here. It's terrible. Number 5, Go pills. Okay, look out, 5-hour energy. We're pulling an all-nighter for this one. Every time I watch Lord of the Rings, I fall asleep. I can't help it. It's a lovely film, but it's so cozy. The music, just tucks me in, and I'm gone. Also, it's like 4.5 hours, so, it's not my fault. But that's not an issue in the real world, is it? No. Overnight truck drivers struggling to stay awake to pay the bills, that's a bit more important, I'd say. And that's where Go pills were supposed to come into play. The pill that keeps you up for 40 hours straight. Yeah, doesn't that sound like a nightmare? What the hell? The US Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, again, DARPA, is currently funding this pill. The benefits it would have, I gotta say, if this thing works, I'm kinda on board, honestly. I can finally play 50 turns in a single round of Mario Party without having to sleep in between. It can finally be done. Or Monopoly. I could do 1 round of Monopoly, finally. Number 4, chimpanzee human. Also referred to as a human Z. Sounds awfully terrifying right off the bat. Look, here are the facts, people. We are very close to chimpanzees. Around 98% of our DNA is shared with that of a chimpanzee. That's why we look awfully familiar with our hands and beautiful eyes. Back in the 1920s, we got closer than ever. A human Z was not just a fantasy. Soviet biologist Ilya Ivanov inseminated female chimps with DNA, but it didn't work. Or did it? See, things got questionable when a chimp named Oliver hit the scene later in the 70s. He was walking like a human, referred to as the missing link because of his appearance. Yeah, he was previously a performance animal. He was a show chimp, so not a hybrid, but many viewed these experiments as immoral back in the day. Which is odd because I remember seeing chimps in family movies. I remember seeing like Most Extreme Primate, where he's doing like skateboard tricks, where he's like snowboarding all of a sudden. Air Bud as well. I don't know. What made these animals do all these sports? You know what I mean? Number 3, lions. Back in the 1980s at the Chatbir Zoo in India, they started this experimental program where they would breed together a domestic lion, which is a bit smaller and has a less shaggy mane. They would breed that with an African lion in hopes that they would meet in the middle and be introduced to the wild and somehow help with the dwindling population of wild lions in India. Now on paper, this sounds like a great idea, dare I say, a step forward for the animals and the wild, but it wasn't. Nope, that's why we're here on this list. The zoo found 2 African lions that were being used in a circus, and then they brought them in to breed with their 2 Asiatic lions. Now, when the cubs were born, it was clear this was already a mistake, as the cubs had severely weak back legs right off the hop. It wasn't looking good. They were having extreme trouble walking, and as they got older, their immune system started to fail. Now, by 2000, they had bred more than 70 of these new hybrid lions, and it was too late, right? They'd finally decided to stop the program, and all the males were then given vasectomies in order to stop any further reproduction. But there were laws that prohibited them from killing any animals, so they were simply just waiting for them to die of natural causes, which, in this case, doesn't really exist. When there's a dwindling population of lions, it's insane to me that they wasted 20 years doing this when they could have just, simply bred the lions that they had with other lions. Probably harder than it sounds, but I don't know. What the f is this? New lions with like Bambi legs? That's way worse. Number 2, spider art. Nice. This is like Art Attack, but terrifying because I hate spiders. Before our number 1 spot, I have to mention NASA's 1995 spider test. They're a little cool, dare I say. When nature meets science, we often get jarring results, be it hybrid animals, clones, monkeys going on and off, you name it. Spiders, as fascinating as they already are, can be even more mysterious, especially when they're exposed to, how do I say this, mind-altering illicit substances. You got it? NASA wanted to determine the toxicity between all of these substances and what differences they may look like in real life. Now, spiders are fascinating. We can see how they think and survive every day. We see it up close. We walk through them and we go right in your face. But we never see them like this before. Caffeinated behavior is all over the place when it comes to their web. It doesn't look like a normal web at all. But with hallucinogens, it's the same shape of a web, but it's almost missing steps. I don't think any animal should also have coffee, let alone hallucinogens. My God, no way. Also, I can't even have coffee. I'm crazy when I have coffee, let alone any of this shit. And finally, number 1, the mouse with an ear on its back. Yeah, the title says it all. I could say that and we could be done here, but I think I have to explain a bit more. If we ever reboot Stuart Little, this guy has to audition. Let's do it. A live action? Are you kidding me? He'd f it up. Back in 1997, this vacanti mouse became the test subject to determine if scientists could grow cartilage using chondrocytes, aka cells from a cow. Well, it worked, and we're still talking about it. I'm still talking about it, obviously. Look at this. Now it all started when Joseph Visconti, pediatric surgeon, he began designing human organs. Now this was during a shortage. He wasn't just born and, started to make ears like a serial killer. No, he was changing the medical game. And little did he know, he was about to change the science game as well. He constructed a regular looking ear, and he told his brother Chuck and his partner Bob to not bring up the fact that he attached said ear to a live mouse. Now, that's a pretty hard secret to keep, I imagine, so Chuck ended up spilling the beans. Now everybody knows, but at the same time, now we all know that cow cartilage can create cells, which is pretty good. That's pretty good science. Can grow ears. I want to Q-tip his ear back thing, you know what I mean? Starting our list off at number 10, microwave. I can't say microwave anymore. I have to say microwave because of this video.
Milk, full fat, which I've warmed in the microwave.
Thanks to this first invention on our list today, I can eat Hot Pockets anytime I want. Not all inventions allow you to accomplish such a feat. Percy Spencer changed the science and snack game. He was originally an American engineer working for Raytheon, but Percy also loved a snack on the site. So he had a chocolate bar in his pocket one day. He was saving it for later, but when he walked in front of a magnetron, the chocolate bar in his pocket, well, it sadly melted. But luckily for us, after a few follow-up experiments in 1945, we now get microwave ovens. And it's always a good time. It wasn't until 1967, mind you, where microwaves were in our actual homes, because of course it took a little while to narrow down. But yeah, nowadays it's great. We almost forget we have one now. It's perfect. Number 9. Super glue. I feel like we're using super glue now more than ever in history. Activists are gluing themselves to tables, streets, you name it. But who do we have to thank for such a sticky substance? Back in 1942, inventor Dr. Harry Coover was working on plastic sights for weapons. Now, this was intended to help Allied forces during World War II, but while working on these clear plastic sights, he made super glue instead. Now, obviously, he was a little busy at the time, so he shelved this invention for 9 years before returning back to the lab. Superglue didn't completely come out until 1958. It took 16 years to get to our shelves. And it's still there. We use superglue to fix everything, even the occasional social issue, it appears. Number 8, pacemaker. Here we go. This one's a tad more exciting than superglue, dare I say. A pacemaker. Odds are you know somebody with one of these right now. It all started in 1956 when Wilson Greatbach was trying to record the rhythm of the heart. Not the song, the actual rhythm of the actual heart. That's the dumbest joke I've ever put in anything in my entire life. But after installing the wrong piece by mistake, he actually realized that the circuit was emitting these pulses, these heartbeat type pulses. So he thought, well, maybe I can create a device small enough for a body and actually stimulate an actual heartbeat. Cut to 1958, a dog was the first ever proud owner of one pacemaker. He's walking around, he's like, hey, life's rough. Number 7, human cow eggs. Okay, we had a few giggles with that one. Time to get into some real dark science stuff. Back in 2008, hybrid research was being done. Human animal hybrid research obviously was being done because of course. The whole idea was to find a cure for Parkinson's disease. Now, I like these projects because we're moving forward at least, or we're trying to. We're trying to find a solution in some way, shape, or form, right? Road's gonna get a little dirty, but we'll figure it out. Otherwise, we don't need to be poking around cows, you know what I mean? Nobody needs 3 bowls of cereal before gym class anymore. Those days are over. There's other ways to wake up. I would do the beep test, I almost throw up every single day. Yeah, I would just have a full bowl of cereal, then just go to class and like play baseball all morning. It's like, geez. Scientists used the nucleus of a cow egg. They took it out and replaced that nucleus with that of human and skin cells. Add in a little time and the egg can now develop and turn into a blastocyst, aka a clone embryo. And there we have stem cells for says science. Again, this is a lovely step, but how far do we go? How much DNA are we gonna mix before, things can go south? For example, like Number 6, monkey head transplant. Okay, here we go. The first ever successful monkey head transplant. Crazy that I'm saying that out loud. This was back in the early 1970s. I imagine some of your parents may have heard of this. I don't know, I bet it would be hard to forget. Ask them. Ask them in the middle of dinner when they're mid-bite. Ask them about the monkey head transplant from the 70s. Just ruined dinner. American researcher Robert White, he pulled off the, otherwise impossible and a slow, tedious operation. See, White took the head of one monkey and then attached it to a already headless monkey. Add a little time and energy and some science and voila, this actually worked. Yeah, the monkey actually tried to bite one of the surgeons once it came to life, which, totally fair. I'd probably be a little upset too. Sadly, the monkey passed away 9 days later, but like I said, the fact this actually happened, 1, is terrifying, and 2, dare I say, It's miraculous. Some sci-fi stuff right here. Removing heads, or transferring heads for 9 business days? Gross. Number 5. Monkey become human. This next one's a little less hands-on, so, you know, if you have food, now you can probably take a bite. It's probably safe for now. Back in 1931, psychologist Winthrop Kellogg, familiar name, he was curious. He sat up one night out of the blue and thought, you know what would happen if a monkey was raised with human beings? Would it end up like that, you know, monkey from MVP? Would it learn to play hockey for the local team? Or would operations go south quickly? The latter happened. Yeah, no hockeys are doing any, you know, crosses and deeks. It's all bad. When it comes to animals and science, it's pretty bad. It's nothing like the cinema. None of that shit happened at all. Kellogg instead brought a baby female chimp named Gua into his home. Yeah, this man raised the chimp as if it were another human being alongside his own human being son, Donald, which is just a wild time growing up. I'd rather you have an imaginary friend than a monkey as a friend. That's pretty dangerous. But they did everything together. They played, they went to bed, they did all their human stuff. The test was working, but it ended abruptly after Kellogg's son, Donald, started to make chimp noises. Yeah, and then everybody was like, you know what? Let's not do that. That was terrifying. Maybe chimps can't learn how to kickflip. Maybe instead humans just go backwards in evolution. So Gua was then released and no more human best friend. You know, back to, dare I say, normal. I always wanted a monkey best friend growing up. Now I don't. Now I really don't. Number 4, multi-dog. The multi-dog. Yeah, this is gross. This was back in the 50s when a Soviet scientist, Vladimir Demikov, created, well, a multi-headed dog. It's pretty easy. Time magazine covered it. Of course, this is again a feat in science, as disgusting as it is. The adult dog had a newborn grafted to its neck, so when it grew, it could somehow survive off the blood of the main, bigger dog. The body, for a lack of a better term. Gross. When observed, the puppy did have its own characteristics. It was playful as it growls, just as the other dog's characteristics would be. Now, it is a sad 1950s Soviet animal experiment, so of course that animal didn't survive a very long time. But crossbreeding experiments from hell, this is why we're here, you know what I mean? It's like that 3-headed dog from Harry Potter, you know what I mean? Cerberus, I think his name is Cerberus. This, a little more terrifying, a little more jarring, I'd say, to look at. After you play Harry Potter chess, this thing pops out, you're like, ooh. Never mind, 0 points for Gryffindor. Number 3, the discovery of penicillin. Sometimes miracles happen when nobody's even in the room, right? It's like boiling water or something like that, you have to look away. A watched pot never boils. It certainly does though, you know? Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin back in 1928. Now at the time, he was actually studying Staphylococcus, bacteria that causes infections and boils and nasty stuff. But right before Alexander left for a 2-week vacation, he left a petri dish with some of that Staphylococcus just on the lab table, rather than stored away in an incubator. Turns out everybody here needed alone time because during this off time, a penicillium mold spore just got the confidence to introduce itself to said bacteria. And now the room's temperature was also perfect. It was a lovely moment for everybody involved. Plus the emptiness of the room allowed for the mold to finally fight back in peace and prevent that bacteria from growing furthermore. He discovered this antibacterial substance was only produced by strains of penicillium. Guy's like, all right, see you in 2 weeks. Comes back to a literal miracle. It's like, what? Number 2, the Trinity test. Not all of these are Velcro and fun and games, okay? Some science discoveries suck. When Americans heard that Germans were developing nuclear weapons, they joined in with their development on a project, most of it being done in New Mexico. So in 1939, President Roosevelt got scientists, military officials, this whole team of brilliant individuals to figure out how to use uranium as a weapon. The government eventually started to fund said research, which was happening at Columbia University, and in 1942, engineers from the Army joined in as well. And following Pearl Harbor, that's when President Roosevelt transitioned the project into a military branch officially, the Manhattan Project, made with the strict goal of weaponizing nuclear energy. There are facilities in New Mexico, Tennessee, Washington, even here in Canada, you name it. But come July 16, 1945, the Trinity test was conducted. The first atomic weapon was detonated in a New Mexico desert and it was deemed a success, with mushroom clouds reaching as high as 40,000 feet. It was, yeah, that was definitely life-changing, for sure. And finally, number 1, Coca-Cola. All right, we'll finish on a nice sweet note. Let's do it. Every time it's the holiday season, I see nothing but Coca-Cola ads. I don't know how they do it. they've somehow tapped into the entire holiday season. But how does such a syrup come to be in the first place? We'll end on this one so we can all grab a drink immediately after the video ends. I got you, I know how to do this. Inventor and pharmacist John Pemberton originally set out to cure headaches, which is pretty ironic. Two main ingredients, of course, being coca leaves and cola nuts. Now, things were boring, dare I say, until his lab assistant accidentally mixed the two with carbonated water. And then, poof, it's a miracle. It's like they knew, it's like they were from the future and they're like, hey, trust me, I got us. Over time, you throw in this top secret recipe, which we still don't know, and now we have a movie theater essential. And one of my favorite soft drinks, Coca-Cola. Personally, actually, I'm lying. I'm a Dr. Pepper guy, if anything. 23 flavors? How in the world do they get it in that little can? If we get a part 2, I'll throw Dr. Pepper in. There you go. Number 9, the turkey fake-out. This next one here is pretty funny. I had to include it. Back in the 1960s, turkey biologists in Pennsylvania thought, what if a male turkey was in a room with a fake turkey? What would happen, right? When you try and flirt, right? Let's see what happens. Would he I Am Legend this fake turkey and just continue on living like everything's normal? Yes, turns out the answer is yes. These male turkeys would actually try and mate with the fake turkey, but by the end of the tests, they just had a head of a turkey on a stick. A fake turkey also, that'd be horrible. But these dudes still came out like, hey, what's going on, you single? Even though it was a stick with a photo of a turkey. These guys had no idea. How funny is that? They were just slowly taking away parts of a real turkey, and these dudes were coming out still with the same game plan, with the same keys to the VIP plan to get with that turkey, even though it's a broom. Number 8, Zorse. It's a fun one to say, let's do it. Zorse, it's a great word, Zorse. Male zebra, female horse. Now we get a really fun word, the Zorse. Sounds like a god, Thor, Odin, and Zorse. Zebroids are also quite common historically. See, Charles Darwin even noted some in his early work. So since the 19th century, crossbreeding zebras with horses or donkeys, it's all been done. More often than not, and this is what makes them stand out, zebroids will experience dwarfism. Yeah, they're quite cute, I can't lie. In 2010, a zedonk was born, a zebra donkey. But again, back in the 70s, 3 were born in Colchester Zoo. Yeah, way back then. Probably forgot about that. These zookeepers were like, how do we make the zoos new and hip? Oh, I have an idea. Yeah, bizarre. Humans aren't too smart. Let's stop mixing animal DNA. We get pretty jarring results all the time, I think. Number 7. Theory of evolution. Charles Darwin. We don't think of this man too often for obvious reasons, but he had some ideas that were out there, right? In his book, The Origin of Species, written back in 1859, he explained how humans were evolved from the animal kingdom. And as if that wasn't already a handful of news, he also claimed that the world was much, much older than what everybody thought. And around the 1930s, that crazy idea was then accepted into the scientific community officially. Imagine being the first person to be like, I think we came from animals. I don't think we're aliens. I think we're actually animals. That's a hot take, right? Number 6, oxygen. Okay, speaking of hot takes, again, imagine being the first person to be like, what is this? What am I breathing right now? Why is this so good? What is oxygen? What is all this gas around us? Pretty hot take. That's a pretty bold thing to just dive into. Oxygen was identified for the first time scientifically by Joseph Priestley back in 1774. After he heated up red mercuric oxide, he found this colorless gas, and at first he called it dephlogisticated air, which is, it doesn't roll off the tongue per se. And Priestley shared his discovery with the French scientist Antoine Lavoisier. Lavoisier then connected these dots, and we learned that oxygen supports animal life. And us too, we don't mind air. That's pretty nice. Number 5, not flat. Let's talk about the Earth for a hot second, shall we? Any guesses as to what shape it is? I'll tell you one thing, it's certainly not flat. Definitely not a flat planet. We can hit that thumbs up for not a flat Earth. We've known this since 1619, when Johann Kepler published the third law of planetary motion. Now this was a glorious day for the scientific community. This is when humans finally figured out that the Earth revolves around the sun and not the other way around. And also circular. That's also a great point to learn at the same time, that it's not flat. For sure not flat, definitely a circle. If you're a flat earther, hit that thumbs up. We're learning today, Number 2. Pyrenean ibex. The Pyrenean ibex also went extinct, now this time much sooner than mammoths. Actually around 2000, period. Not 2,000 years ago, like 2000 the year. Yeah, the last one was a female named Celia, and a falling tree sadly killed her. Of all the ways to go, really? That's just brutal. A subspecies of the Spanish ibex, the Pyrenean ibex, were native to the Pyrenees Mountains on the border of Spain and France. Now, back in the medieval ages, their population was reduced drastically to an endangered level. Knights and swords equals lunch. We now have lunch. So the numbers dipped, okay? More than fair. We got armies to feed, yada yada. But in 2009, science was ready for the Pyrenean ibex to return. Okay, that's a little odd. It was successfully cloned and brought back from extinction for 7 minutes. DNA from the last living lady was implanted in the womb of a domestic goat. Lung complications are why the clone ultimately didn't survive, but we had a hybrid medieval animal back for 7 minutes. We're getting close. To what? Not really sure, but we're getting close to something. And finally, number 1. The kunga, perhaps the earliest example of human-animal hybrid testing ever. Scientists recently learned about this donkey hybrid that once roamed ancient Mesopotamia. Now, this was a time before even horses were on this land, right? This was a long time ago. So they had to do something. Large kungas would pull wagons, and smaller ones would help pull plows. These little guys were the talk of the town. Imagine a hybrid animal before horses. No wonder they were a status symbol. Let's go. 4,000 years ago, they were given as gifts for weddings. Yummy. I wonder if this is a kunga. It smells like a kunga. After so long, scientists are finally able to figure out what exactly a kunga was a hybrid of. It was a female donkey and a male Syrian wild ass. Yeah, just a wild hybrid ass. It's pretty insane what you can still learn from ancient animal bones even from thousands of years ago. It's fascinating. More amazing how evolved this hybrid was in Mesopotamian culture. I don't know, should we bring back the kunga? Imagine seeing this thing in a farm just pulling something.